meeting to order. Roll call, Fred Dickey.
He's there. He just answered the phone.
Okay, Mayra Hernandez. Cesar Garay.
I'm here.
Here. Myself,
Yes.
here. Arturo Dominguez.
Here.
Alma Acevedo.
Present.
Rafael Dueñas.
Here.
Julian Rognoski. Julian hasn't gotten in, should be in. Joe Maldonado.
Here in person, but not in spirit.
There you go. Estoy watchando, okay?
That's great.
Very good. So we have a quorum.
Be good.
Good. Next item on the agenda are the minutes. Y'all had the minutes since yesterday. I don't know if y'all had a chance to.
Motion to
the
approve.
minutes. There's a motion to approve by who? I'm sorry.
Arturo. Sorry.
Arturo is. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, first item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action regarding local economic update by Teclo Garcia,
Mr. Chairman, if you
beloved Economic Development Director.
beloved man, wow. If I give a second for Arnold to put this up on the screen for us so we can kind of follow it together. Is that okay?
It's okay. We're not going anywhere.
Okay. I'll wait for Arnold to do that.
Come with all the icons. I see icons. I don't know.
I know. I don't know where he left that, but Arnold, do you still have that?
I think Myra's in before I forget. She just chatted.
Okay, well, hold on a second.
By the way, I see Mayra Hernandez. She was not here when we did the roll call. Mayra, are you there?
I'm here.
Mayra Hernandez.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Mayra. We're only lacking Julian. I don't know if Julian has already logged in.
Julian's having some trouble logging in with the password.
Okay, I'm gonna mute now.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, so can you guys see that?
Okay.
I just want to I would just want to share that so we can go through it together. There's nothing really profound about it, but if I can start, Mr. Chairman, I'll start going through the bullet points there. I just want to make it kind of simple. First, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We'll probably still be doing this for a little while. Unfortunately, the situation obviously in Laredo is really bad. We have I forget what the word is, but sort of like an incidence rate of how much percentage of Laredoans, are getting COVID, and we're like around 40%. So 40% of Laredoans either have it or have had it. Yes, Fred.
Do we know why? Do we really know why we have such a high incidence? I have a thought.
I mean, I can only tell you what the medical professionals say. I'm not one, but there's a variety of reasons why we're high.
Yeah.
Those are the people that have tested. 37%, I believe, have tested positive, right?
That's
but in
right.
other words, I guess if you looked at the overall population, people that haven't tested, well, but I guess it's the people that have tested. 37% have tested positive. Am I correct?
Just wondering if at the density of our population, we have 2 and 3 generations living in the same household.
The medical experts say that is a factor. Mr. Dickey. That's a factor. People not listening, and wearing masks and washing hands. That's another factor. We have a very mobile population in Laredo, whether it's people going back and forth across the border or the logistics people coming in and out through the whole city. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved why it's high. The valley is McAllen area is just as bad or worse than we are. On Monday, McAllen had 48 deaths, and the state of Kentucky had 7. So, I mean, that tells you what kind of situation that we're in. But nevertheless, we'll still be doing this virtually because of that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to make y'all aware that we'll do our best to, continue the meeting as a group. But I want to share with you some of our statistics from June in the middle of the COVID, speaking of COVID. And if you can hold your questions to the end, I'll be happy to kind of discuss them there. We've got about like 10, 15 minutes to do this. So let me just start with the top bullet. The Laredo unemployment rate dropped from May to June from 14.4% to 10.1%. Most of that was the result of, the governor opening things back up. But of course, opening things back up was also became a problem. We'll get the June report in about, we'll get the July report in about 3 weeks. We're in the same area, kind of San Antonio, 8.5%, McAllen's 12.8%, and then Corpus Christi 10.1%. So we're kind of in the middle of the regional unemployment rate, if you will. Going on to retail sales tax, the July report was 3.2 million. That's actually from the month of May, because those reports run 2 months behind by the time they get sent to Austin, compiled and sorted out. It takes them 2 months. So in May there was $3.2 million of retail sales receipts. That's an 18% jump from the previous month, which is really April, which was really in the straits of the COVID situation. But I think most importantly, we're just 8% below last July's report, or last May. So, I mean, we don't want to be 8% down on anything, but at least it's not 25% or 50% like in some communities. Like for instance, in McAllen, they're down quite a bit, but McAllen is really reliant on its retail. That's part of their industry that makes them the most money. They cleared more than $70 million last year in retail sales tax receipts. So it just goes to show that they got hit harder because they rely so much on retail and Mexican shoppers. The next one is bridge revenues. For the fiscal year, we're down 15.4%. $9 million in real numbers through the end of July, compared to the same period of 2019. Commercial vehicles crossings are down just 6% for this fiscal year, compared to the much higher numbers overall. But passenger car and pedestrian crossings are down 60 to 70%. So that's a really high number. At one point, I think pedestrian crossings in April were down 85%. That's obviously the restrictions are hurting us, but we also understand why the restrictions are in place because of the health situation. The CARES Act, Laredo College, as y'all remember, the city council approved $900,000, or a plan that management and myself put forth to the city council to take $900,000 of the CARES Act money and give Laredo College $700,000 and Workforce Solutions $200,000, and then they developed workforce retraining courses, and they've been a huge hit. So anyone who has been furloughed, fired, but the business has gone down or otherwise can apply for these courses and enroll for free. And Laredo College gave me a quick report last Friday, and they had about 200 people that had registered, and they had taken in about 600 inquiries, like people who called or emailed and asked them how do they enroll. So so some of the highest courses, or the most popular courses, were commercial driver license, real estate, IT, QuickBooks certification, certified medical assistants, child development associate, dental assistant associate, and pharmacy tech. And for the most part, most of these programs, the fact that people who are unemployed because of COVID, which is mostly in the service sector, right, retail and restaurants and so forth, have chosen these fields is a really good sign, because CDL and IT and dental assistants, pharmacy tech, those are positions that are probably better than the positions that they had. So if they get that certification and they get into the career field, that really makes us happy, because they're going to be earning better money. They're probably going to get benefits they didn't have before, and maybe it'll lead to something else. So we're really, really happy with that. And what we're going to try to do is, in fact, I just got off the phone with the Commissioner Alvarez from the Workforce Commission just a few minutes ago, because I'm asking him, hey, how can we get more money to continue these programs for certification? Because Laredo College has done a great job, as has Workforce Solutions. And if we can, get another 500 or 800 people trained, man, that'd be great. That's where we lack, people in the healthcare industry and logistics, where we need to train them and get better paid positions. Anyway, that's my little briefing. I'll take any questions from y'all. Nada?
Teclo, as
Yes,
far
sir.
as retail sales, I know we've mentioned about how much we rely on the Mexican shopper versus the U.S. I mean, we were just down 8%. It seems kind of low to me.
Well, that's just for that month. So remember, this report is from May, right? It just comes out in July.
Right.
So this May compared to last May, we're only down 8%. I mean, that's the number. I mean, that's what the state has given us. And so if you remember, late April, beginning of May is when the governor opened things back up. So there could be a little bit of a surge because of that, opening up, and maybe May is an anomaly. Maybe in June we go back, maybe in June we go back down because, we got ourselves in trouble. But yeah, that's what the state is reporting. And it's reflective around the state. Other cities have also, showed a little bit of, coming back.
On that note, also late spring, early summer last year was a lot of the migrant crossings and the issues around that. So I think even there was some boycotting, and if I don't remember correctly, so maybe it's not that drastic of a change, because last year might have been even less than the year before. So it's just
Good point.
And if I may, this is Eileen Ramos from the CVB.
This is Eileen Ramos, our CVB director. She's on. She's going to go on just after me. So welcome, Eileen.
Thank you. If I may just interject in this comment, May is not one of the strongest months in terms of visitors coming from Mexico. It's the end of the school year. And so people are gearing up for the summer. So summer starting June, July, definitely August are strong months in terms of visitation from the Mexican market.
Thank you.
Tecla, one other question you put there, bridge revenues are down 15% now. Passenger cars and vehicle crossings are down 60-70%.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial vehicle crossings are only down 6%. So what's the breakdown of the revenues we normally get from, because I think it's like 66 million that we get in bridge revenues. What's the breakdown that we normally get from commercial vehicle versus pedestrian vehicle, passenger car and pedestrian revenue?
I can have that to you by the end of the meeting, probably. I'd have to look up a file. I have that information, but I don't have it on hand. But just for everyone's general knowledge, the trailers pay $23.75 per crossing because of their the number of axles that they have, right? And obviously cars and pedestrians pay a lot less. So the commercial component of our bridge crossings is a lot bigger than the rest of the revenue that comes in. That's why their crossings are so important, to the bridges. The bridge does provide that number for us, John, and I'll have that to you later.
Very much. Is there any other discussion or questions? If not, we'll move on to the second.
I'm sorry. I do actually have a question regarding to the re-education that was being discussed. Thecla, what were the top categories that people were taking?
Oh yeah, right here. Commercial driver's license, real estate, IT, through CompTIA, the National Certification Board for IT professionals, QuickBooks certification, certified medical assistant, child development associate, dental assistant associate, and pharmacy tech. Those are the most popular. There's more, but those are the top ones.
Okay, and do they give suggestions, I'm assuming they understand what are in high demand, but do they, maybe this is asking a little too much, but do they understand what may be in high demand post-COVID?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That's a great question, Julian. So what we did was we worked with Workforce Solutions, which is Texas Workforce, right, and with Laredo College to put forth the most high demand certifications, or the most certifications that are in high demand that we could. So all these that you see are in high demand already, considered that by the state of Texas.
Got it.
In addition to that, just to go a step further, Workforce Solutions is also helping with placement once these folks are done. They don't have to go to them for help. Maybe some of them already discovered a job, but they can go to Workforce Solutions, and then they will try to place them in a job.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Any other discussion? Also, for the record, Julian Rupnowski is also present, so we have all our members present. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding coronavirus impact report on Laredo's tourism and sales by Eileen Ramos, who's the Convention and Visitors Bureau Director. Ms. Ramos?
Okay, my screen, I hope everybody can see it.
Eileen, can I interrupt real quick? Can you just tell us what you and your group do basically year-round, even with or without COVID, before you start?
Yes, of course. The Convention and Visitors Bureau our mission is to market Laredo, to promote the destination, and to motivate people to visit our community and stay in a hotel, go to an attraction, eat at a restaurant, and basically experience the community. So throughout the year, we heavily promote with different groups. We have our leisure, obviously, the regular tourist visitor that we all know, but we also work together with Port Laredo to bring more business travelers, to bring more, we also work with conventions, groups, sports tournaments. So anything that would bring people to Laredo, that's what we do. Our funds, we're one of the only departments in the city that is not funded by general fund. We're actually funded through the hotel motel tax. And so all of our budget comes from that tax that the visitor pays at the hotel every time they stay. The state gets a portion, the city gets a portion, and the county also gets a portion. And so that's where our budget comes from. And so there's a lot of regulations of how we can use our budget because of that. But the main thing is bring back those heads and beds to the community, make sure that people are staying in our hotels. And so what I'm going to show you is the impact on those hotels, because those are the metrics that we focus on a lot, because that shows if people are staying, if they're staying here for more than a day. And obviously we have two different markets. Laredo is very unique in that sense. We have our Mexican market, as you mentioned. We have a strong relationship with our Mexican market. We continue to have our office. We're one of the only destinations that has an office in Monterrey, which has been, in terms of public relations and communication with the media, has proven to be key. And we have two people there that service our office. And we also, this year, we are about to launch. So this is basically one of the last presentations that I have with this logo. In about exactly 2 weeks, we're going to launch our new brand, our new campaign for the US. We've had the same campaign for a while, and it's time for us to refresh and renovate. And we've been planning this for quite a while. We got sidetracked because of COVID, but we have a partnership with a great agency that has helped us rethink our campaign. Even though we were all ready to get it out, we had to rethink the campaign in order to be, for it to make sense with the COVID situation.
Eileen, I'm saddened to hear that you didn't ask for my direct input on how I would package Laredo going forward.
I'm sorry, Tecla. We'll come back to you.
Samesies. We're all gonna say that. Me too. No, I'm just kidding.
We did have input from the community. We had meetings with stakeholders. We included different people from different roles in the community because we wanted to have that input. One thing that we wanted to focus on is, and I said this in one of our different meetings with stakeholders, because we had several, and I mentioned in Laredo, we see Laredo with as locals, right? And we see what we think we want to see, but not necessarily what our market is seeing. And so we made it a point to contract with an agency that had a fresh vision and that could see Laredo and its potential in a different way and could give us that perspective from the visitor. And so it was really interesting. They were focusing on things that none of our stakeholders, none of us would ever focus, because that's what was fresh for them. That's what was interesting and just vibrant for them. And so it was a very good exercise to marry that perspective from our stakeholders, our team, with also the perspective from a true visitor from another state. And so it's been a really, really good exercise for us, not only in refreshing our brand, but in seeing it with a different perspective. With that being said, COVID hit. And so we were doing pretty well. For the last 2-3 years, we've been in the high 60s to high 70s percentage-wise in occupancy. That's how we measure our numbers. The number of hotel rooms that we have. Here in the city, we have about 4,000 rooms in the different hotels, all levels, right? We have from smaller properties to our well-known customer favorite properties, or for different segments, because they're customer favorites for the Mexican market or the leisure traveler. But we also know that we have our business traveler that has a different preference. And so we were fluctuating between 64, 65, all the way to 76 for the last 2-3 years. As I mentioned, we have our highest months. April is really good with conferences, for example. August is amazing with sports tournaments. And then we get the summer with our Mexican visitor. So we have that really good combination. When COVID hit and we started seeing the numbers obviously go down at the beginning, and I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is our first month, right? And you can see I drew the line basically where you can see where it started to go down completely, and that was a day that all the orders started to go out. the stay-at-home orders from the state, from the local government. So that's when we saw the decline, very, very clear. At that point, we were basically 30s, 40s. So we were very concerned that this was going to be the trend that we were going to see in the following months. And especially talking with other destinations, because we have kept that communication. We're a very close-knit family, all the CVBs in Texas. And so we kept the communication going through this whole situation. And I kept hearing numbers like 15% and 20% and 10% for other destinations. So I was very concerned that it was going to go even lower. And I added some information, but as the crisis began, we had to switch really quick from a Semana Santa. We were ready for Semana Santa. We were about to launch our campaign for Semana Santa, and we had to hit the brakes and basically change everything from one day to the other to let's stay at home. We'll be together soon. Stay safe. And something that we've seen constantly from March until now is people, especially in the Mexican market, are itching to come back. We get this in our office in Monterrey, we get it on social media, and you can see in the bottom, there's like, pronto volveremos, primero a cuidarnos, gracias por recibirnos con tanta amabilidad. Extrañamos el shopping. So we've had such a good response because we've been very conscious of our message in Mexico, and people have been responding so well, and they are really, really excited about being able to come back whenever it's safe and whenever the bridge is open for leisure traveling. April, when we got the numbers for April, we saw that we were not going down as expected, but we were keeping the 40s. We were staying in the 40s. A lot of that is business traveling. So the fact that we are the trade, the best trade area in the country, the #1 inland port, that helped us a lot because we still see those trucking companies coming in. We still see all the transients, all the different business travelers helped us, and also government. So this is when we start getting people from the National Guard, people from different organizations in the government, and that has helped us keep the number at a certain level. Most of our groups, just a side note, most of our groups that we had for April, as I was telling you, April is a big month for us in terms of conferences, sports tournaments, all that good stuff. We saw that very early. We saw those cancellations. We saw those being postponed to the winter. Now we're seeing those being pushed all the way to further into to spring or summer next year. May, we started seeing the increase. Again, this is primarily business travelers and government. And I was talking this morning, we had our committee meeting this morning, and we have hoteliers in our advisory committee, and they were mentioning that they're seeing a lot of that government, a lot of healthcare providers staying at their properties. They're servicing the different hospitals, obviously, and that has impacted our hotels.
So you're hearing directly from hoteliers themselves, right? They're telling you this.
Yes, this is direct information directly from the hotels. So for us, it is important to have, or for me, it's very important to have not only the number, what the reports tell me, but then also touch base with the hotels and see, okay, does this make sense? Why are we not seeing the decline as other destinations? What is going on in our community that's different from others? And so in the conversation with the hotels, that's what came back, that they're seeing a lot more healthcare providers, a lot more government. And one of the concerns for us, at least, is most of those are going to be extended stay. And so when there's extended stay, we don't necessarily collect the same amount of tax. And so, but they said that some of them are coming 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we still collect the tax from that. They're extended stay, but not more than 30 days, which is when we don't collect.
But that's great for the economy because now those people are going to eat and spend money for that whole period and spend a little bit more probably per day than they would if they were just here 2 days or 3, because they're having
Exactly.
they have other needs now.
Exactly. So there's the good with the not so good, right? So the not good is that we have this overflow and the surge in our hospitals, but our economy is being impacted in a smaller way because they are helping us buffer that or helping us.
Hey, you've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, and this is the last. June is our last the last month that we have for the report, and as you can see, we're climbing. We're in the 50s. We're now mid 50s some days, and so again, what we see is basically government, business traveler. Another thing that the hotels mentioned is the business traveler is coming back, so they're starting to see their accounts, the regular business travelers that they usually see. They're starting to come back. And so that means that they're figuring out how to do it. They're trying to keep their people safe, but they're bringing business travel back. So that is a very good thing. As we expect the other parts, the government and the healthcare, to go down, hopefully, we are starting to get our business traveler back. As you know, July is another one big month for us because we have sister cities. We unfortunately had to make the decision of canceling the event for this year, but we're going virtual. And we're trying to bring the experience to people for this year in a virtual setting, and hopefully we can come back with our event next year. That event's a really good event in terms of hotel occupancy and just the impact to the local economy. Last year we had 25,000 people attending the event, and a lot of them traveling from out of town. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Hey, now's the time. Let me ask, if no one has a question, I'd like to ask Cesar a question. Cesar, how does what Eileen has to say about visitors and patterns and all that affected how the beverage industry works? I mean, do y'all see the same dips and so forth because of the COVID and the lack of visitors and hotel stays?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, yeah, we did see a dip it's what we call on premise for our special events and anything having to do with gatherings, correct? So what we did see is that our sales did transfer into grocery and more of convenience. I believe that a lot of people are just, I mean, like everybody else, are staying home and just buying those extra sodas and so on and so forth and keep them for the week. I mean, it also has a lot to do with kids being at home. I mean, a lot more people spending a lot more time at home, even on weekends. But yes, we took a big dip on just an event and for people coming in. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. So, but it kind of fluctuates on what Eileen just mentioned on where they had about a 30% decrease, and yeah, we're about there. We're about there. Overall, for us, it's been great though, because we did pick up our business in other areas. But yeah, we did see that same dip. So.
Question.
Okay, thank you.
Question from Ms. Ramos.
I have just a comment observation. Eileen, thank you so much for your time and sharing, and it's great to see you again, even if it's virtually. I just, I had to look it up. I figured out pretty much when I first came to Laredo that the dips were the weekends. And so you see how much the Monday through Friday stay really makes an impact on your numbers. So I think that, just more of the business promotion, obviously that you mentioned the importance of the port. And, I think, just recently Congressman Cuellar announced the second rail bridge. We're going to be seeing hopefully some more boosts in that port and those numbers. And hopefully we'll be able to get your funds back up there with better business promotion. But I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a good point. And it's really good to see you, Alma. We have, with this new campaign, because in previous years, we were very focused on the leisure. And so with this new campaign, what we did is before we started everything with the agency, myself and Joel, we sat down with all the managers of the hotels and we said, where's your business coming? Because we saw the same thing. We saw Monday through Friday, and then the dip comes on the Sunday. So that dip is Sunday and then starts up again. So we know that we get the Friday, Saturday of the Mexican traveler, but the bulk of the week, I mean, it's our business traveler. And so we sat with them and we said, what's your, where's the visitor coming from? And so based on that, we talked to the agency and we said, we want to focus not only on the leisure, but also on the business traveler. We understand the business traveler is one of our personas, one of our key targets. And so they're definitely included in our new campaign. And of course, working together with economic development, with Bridge and Airport, were one of those 4 elements for the promotion of Fort Laredo.
Question for you, Eileen. This is John Villarreal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How much are the hotel motel taxes down, say, from year to year? I mean, comparing it to, say, the same months of last year.
Give me 1 second.
I have that information.
Yes, because I have I have it here.
I'm sure we can get it later.
Yes, I can get it to Teclo. And one of the things is total taxes. It also has to do with our ADR, and our average daily rate. It has been consistent, so it might be a little bit higher than the loss of the occupancy. Also, we are behind, so it's 1 month behind. But I'll share that information with
Eileen. Eileen, remember that we looked at these rates a month ago. Remember, we said that we weren't down as far as McAllen was and some other cities. Remember?
Yes. No. And we saw. Let me see if I can.
And the other thing is I think you can measure, John. You can measure how far our occupancy rate has gone down by the number of sales of Bud Light that has gone down. I think they coincide the same.
Yeah, and the important thing, I guess, is looking at the RevPAR, which is revenue per I guess.
Exactly.
Right.
So what I showed you here.
You have a high occupancy, but the rate is down, right?
Exactly. So what I showed you here is our occupancy. I didn't want to go into the weeds with the numbers, but I can share that information with Teclo. We have we get reports monthly, and this is a benchmark report. What I showed you is part of a benchmark report, but we measure occupancy, average daily rate, and the revenue. So we can see all 3 elements calculated so that we can really have a good grasp at taxes and how we're going to be impacted. And that's why also at the very beginning of all this situation in March, we kind of hit the brakes on our budget, and we said, wait, we don't know how much we're going to be affected. And so we made preventive cuts to our budget just to be on the safe side, because we understand that those fluctuations are gonna affect us, not only in the next fiscal year, but already in this one.
If you send that to me, I'll disseminate that to the group. Any last, Ms. Chairman, any last questions, just so we can have time to check those other things?
Can she share that presentation with us?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any other comments?
Yeah, Eileen Cesar here again. I know, has there been anything complaints, or is there any tax breaks that, I know there's a hotel motel association out there that they've been, I know there's these funds that kind of go into that for try to get people in here. Has there been any say so from these organizations on trying to get some type of break or tax break for the time being? I know not a lot of stuff happening. I mean, per se, you can't do any events or so on and so forth, but has there been any suggestions from them or anything like that?
Not from our properties. I have been in contact. We don't have a local organization, but we are subscribed to we are members of the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association, and I'm in close communication with them. There hasn't been any requests from our local hotels through us or through the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association for any assistance. And we're monitoring that constantly because we know there has been in other destinations.
Okay, good deal. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Discussions? If not, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action regarding the Chapter 380 guidelines for the City of Laredo to include an industry cluster initiative prior to developing incentives in the Chapter 380 agreement. I know we discussed this last time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is maybe give the floor to Julian, Joey, and yourself, especially in regards to the last discussion that we had and how we wanted to move forward with the 380s. And then I'll have a comment, after they kind of talk about what the subcommittee kind of decided. I'd like to add a comment onto that as well.
Okay.
Julian, Joey, y'all want to start?
I don't mind jumping in and just kind of giving a general overview, and then Joey can discuss where we ended up at. But essentially, Theklo mentioned that he wanted to actually, revamp the Chapter 380 agreement that we were working on, and basically he just doesn't like it. He wants to start anew. With that discussion, we went a little deeper and actually discussed how, at the end of the day, putting together this Chapter 380 and putting together the incentives are going to be, we felt like it was putting the cart before the horse. And what we really wanted to know is, what are we going to incentivize, and why? And essentially, we were discussing, what should be the cutoff. 10 million, 1 million, you do it too low and it just will bombard a lot of Chapter 380s. You do it too high and no one applies. So in that discussion, we realized, well, this is exactly why we need to figure out which clusters we would like to go after and what their needs would be in order to attract them to the city of Laredo. So the discussion kind of ended with Theklo and I and the other subcommittee members discussing how we believe we need to actually develop this cluster initiative as the primary catalyst so that we can finalize the Chapter 380 documents. Does anyone else want to chime in on that discussion?
No, I think you covered it all.
Joey? Okay, so Julian, this is Theklo. Let me make a comment on or a suggestion here. I think what we talked about and what you suggested, especially in that conversation, it was really good. How come we kind of vetted this whole thing out with Joey and certainly with the chairman before, and I think we need to do this, just like you said. However, I think just please take this into consideration as a subcommittee and the board, and we don't have to vote on it today. We can take it under advisement and then come back with it next time. I think that we should at least try to adopt some sort of general policy 380. The city council takes these into consideration every January, at least the 312s, and they'd like to do it at the same time. But if we can't get the cluster stuff done before then, which I don't think it would be done by then, because there is a lot of work and some serious work on it, which I like. I mean, I want to do that. And so I think if we develop some sort of 380 policy and get that adopted, it can always be amended. And if anything, it can be changed completely the following year based on our cluster initiative studies. Just for consideration. I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Let me ask you, so when do you plan to, you said January, when would be like the deadline when we could have a 380 policy in place? What's your time frame there?
Well, if you took January as the goal, Mr. Chairman, and we worked, through this committee to get that done, we could probably, I would say like 90 days from now have something that would be at least I think palatable or, acceptable to the group. And then we could move that to the city council for their consideration, first month of the year. And that's if the group wants to do that. I mean, I leave it up to y'all, but at least that would give us like a placeholder, something that we can work from. So when someone comes up and goes, hey, well, what's your 380 guidelines? Well, we can give them some general things and we can still take things on a case by case basis until we have the full on detailed policy going forward.
One of the things we were looking at is maybe creating maybe another subcommittee on maybe looking at some of these cluster initiatives, maybe looking at the transportation and the medical. We can try and work on the 380, right? But maybe leave open that if we can maybe finalize some of these cluster initiatives, we will incorporate it into the 380. I know we got like 90 days, but maybe in the next 60 days we can see what we can do. At least get a start on that. Julian or Joe, do y'all have any comments on that, or any other committee members?
Well, if I may, my recollection of the subcommittee meeting is pretty close to what everybody's saying, but I remember talking about needing more data before we do analyze 380. Jeklo, I think that's what we talked about, and I think you mentioned that you had experience or had worked with or know an organization or a company that could help us get the data that we need to get to I'm going to call it a robust 380 program, because I know that you also would like to get something done, for consideration by January, which I don't think will include all of the additional data, the information that we need. But Tekla, am I wrong remembering that?
No, you're exactly right. What we had said was that we would, as a group, the board, this committee would consider an item for possible action of advising the city council to consider employing a consultant company that would perform an economic impact study for the city of Laredo. And so there's a couple of things to consider when you're doing that. I just say this to the whole board. It's really a good idea. We have not had one, and the city does need one. But obviously at this time, we're kind of upside down on the budget, and there's things happening. However, that doesn't mean that the city, through our grants administrator and otherwise, can't look for some grants to pay for that study.
Now, what I was talking to Julian, and what I think, Julian, you chime in, is we need to, instead of hiring an outside consultant, maybe look at some of these cluster initiatives, maybe forming a subcommittee, and maybe maybe getting some other volunteers from outside. I know Viviana, Julian's mother, is very well versed on it, where we can start on maybe some of these subcommittees. Julian, you want to chime in?
So if I can chime in on that. So after our subcommittee meeting, I really kind of wanted to dive in and try to figure out, it's always easy to throw money at the problem. So I started doing a little more research, and that's why I started sending out those emails earlier today with the cluster initiatives. If you saw the email, especially that little screenshot, gave the definition. I actually do believe, that we can start a lot of this without hiring a consultant, because at the end of the day, it's gonna take the schools, the public sector. It's gonna take the private sector. It's gonna take all these sectors, both public and private, to come together, and the representatives of those sectors to start communicating. And I think we very much need community buy-in as a foundation for anything if we go towards the direction of a consultant. I really partially debate if we may even need one if we really enact the community on this. If you read that definition, that's the whole thing of a cluster initiative. Maybe down the road there needs to be, someone that helps manage it, but I do know for a fact that there was a small one that started up because of this whole COVID, and from what I understood, it did function properly. I just think we need to really kind of target 2 clusters. The 2 clusters that I figured we can start, organizing through a subcommittee, a separate subcommittee besides the Chapter 380, would most likely be in, shocker to anyone, transportation, 1, but 2, I really think we need to look at our medical cluster. Both of those, and creating a subcommittee to start organizing that, I think is how not only do we get this community buy-in, but really get this going. Because if we don't have the private sector and public sector together to begin with, you can hire any consultant. It's not going to get us anywhere. So we do need all those individuals to come together. So I actually don't believe we need to hire a consultant right now. I'm not sure we will need to, but I think we can get this ball rolling at this point, especially amongst the community.
Julian, can I just say something real quick, and I'll get out of your way, Alma? I agree, Julian. I think your idea of forming the subcommittees within the EDAC committee is a really good way to tackle these issues. But if you don't mind, if you can hear me out on the consultant part, it's my leaning for a consultant is not because I don't believe that the committee or the community can't put together those cluster studies. Sort of like the comp plan, when you get a consultant to put that together, it carries a lot more weight. Kind of a certified economic study that was done by professionals was done, and here it is. And so when you present to a potential employer or a government official or whoever you're trying to convince, you have it as a book there. So I mean, we can do both. Going forward, I just don't want to step on your toes on that idea because I think it's good.
Can I hear what Alma has to say?
Yeah, hi. It's a lot going on right now, and I think that it's almost getting to the point where there's 2 separate things going on. I hear and I completely agree with Theklo saying that let's get a Chapter 380 going, with or without the clusters identified. And I have actually pulled up the copy of, I know our last draft before the subcommittee met was heavily based off Fort Worth's. They have a section, eligibility requirements for target industry projects. So they do have their targets. And then the only mention of clusters in El Paso, and I'll read the whole thing because I think it's important. It says the project must, and it says 1, show a clear demonstration of public purpose and economic benefit through advancement of the city's economic goals, which include expanding the tax base, creating quality jobs, increasing private capital investment in the community, spurring development in targeted locations, or encouraging development of targeted businesses or clusters desirable to enhance the city's economy. And I read that whole thing because they're not making the clusters the foundation of what they're trying to do, because what they're trying to do is have better jobs, create better jobs, and maybe even develop certain areas. We always talk about downtown, certain things like that. So I don't necessarily see how, I see the importance of clusters. I definitely do. I'll get to that in a second. But I think that we should put a Chapter 380. The discussion, when this got brought up at Chapter 380, nobody ever mentioned anything about clusters at the moment. The city council had given Theklo a specific duty, and he came to us to execute that. And I think we need to really focus on that. And like you mentioned, being able to amend it. So it's progress, not perfection. And that's what I'm thinking needs to happen here. And then going to clusters, I had a chance to speak with, I think, a good hour. It's Elizabeth Sobel Blum. She's a senior community development advisor at the Dallas Fed. And we talked about those reports that we use that Viviana was able to use for us to see the McAllen and how Laredo wasn't there and everything. And she said they put those numbers together with Texas Workforce Commission and and gosh, I can't remember. I don't have my notes on me. I had to run home because this is where my laptop was. But she gave a number of resources on what we could use and what we could do. And basically, it didn't seem that Dallas fed the heart. And I'll put the link in real quick. But they were able to do that with just looking at those numbers, the TWC numbers, and something else. And I think that there is an opportunity that there could be grant money. There could be something that, what do you call it? There could be maybe something, I don't want to throw things at Laredo EDC because I know their hands are really tied with the COVID training. But I don't see why those entities couldn't be a part of this or not, whether or not we go with a consultant. But also you got to think about with Eileen's report, she just mentioned that they worked with a company and that they developed targets for the marketing. There's a chance that some of whatever that report already has some of the answers we're looking at. And then I also want to go back to clusters in general as a whole. Just because we see a lot of maquinitas doesn't mean that we have to, like there's a lot of jobs and support around maquinitas, let's say, doesn't mean that that's a cluster we have to go after because the data says that's growing or that provides a lot of jobs and has support of food and beverages and anything else that, you know what I mean? Like it's a terrible example, but I made it a very off example on purpose. We've had meetings, we've talked about transportation, we've talked about our medical sector, and we could even talk about tourism in there. Just like I mentioned, look at Arizona. They have golf courses, senior citizens, and medical, and they are doing great, or they were doing great. So there's just a few things to throw out there before we start going, head first into diving into these clusters and having the clusters dictate any 380 that we need to present to get it off the table. So I think that basically sums up a lot of what I was needing to get out. So.
I think with this, so if I can respond to that, I think the discussion is really focusing on not doing a citywide cluster analysis. I love that example that you just gave, but the funny part is I'd like to point out, if we ever do something like that, I think it's important to know, for example, cluster analysis are not just about just the general category, maquinita, because the truth is you really dive in, it's also about the people that service those maquinitas. Can those, bring in a different cluster? So we need to be careful not to say that we need to avoid certain clusters. I think we need to look at any type of job and any type of business that exists in Laredo. But I do think for the case of the cluster analysis, the idea is to focus on transportation and medical. Transportation being, because that is an obvious cluster that has so many pieces involved in it, and understanding all of those pieces and what jobs are included, what assets like actual equipment are included in a lot of this is imperative to possibly growing out other clusters. But medical is extremely important to the health and well-being of a community. And luckily, we have some medical here. I have heard from listening at city council meetings that there's this idea of, I have it in my notes, let me see, the idea of a hospital district being created. So to do that, I think we need to have an understanding of our medical cluster that exists, because we do have one. We service the county. It's not just Laredo. It's all the little, towns around that area. So I do believe, the reason I think we all were discussing creating another subcommittee is because I think we can work with DECLO. Me, myself, I'm going to stay on that subcommittee on getting the Chapter 380 guidelines. My whole concern of just focusing more, and not to say that we can't make progress on the Chapter 380. I do believe, and I think even Joey, we discussed this, that we can simultaneously move on both. But I do believe understanding what we're going to incentivize and knowing that we don't have that much powder in the keg anymore because of COVID. So every dollar is going to count more. Us understanding what we're incentivizing and why, I think matters more than ever. It's mattered to every other city out there, which is why it's not the main thing, but it's something that is included in their economic analysis of their city and how they use Chapter 380s. It is included, and right now we don't have it. So even though it doesn't say that this has to be the number one reason to do a Chapter 380, they do have it as the whole package. And right now we don't. We don't have that. So I do believe that we need to put more energy in doing a cluster initiative than doing a Chapter 380. But I don't agree that only one can exist. I think we can have both going. That's why we should create another subcommittee to focus on the cluster initiative. And I'll leave it at that.
My last, Mr. Chairman, my last word on the 380 thing, and thank you, Julian. I appreciate, your thoughts and your support on this. We recently got the city got a public improvement district petition, which a private developer wants to do a public improvement district. Well, the city of Laredo doesn't have a public improvement district policy. Right? Someone's come up again for a really big TERS application, right? Well, guess what? City doesn't have a TERS policy, right? So that's why I think that even if it's a general policy for right now, it's important that we try to adopt one by the new year, so at least we have something on record that we can use when someone does apply for a 380 or is looking one. We don't have to start from scratch, or we don't have to say, hey, we don't have a policy. But I just bring that to the group for y'all to consider, that issue. And by the way, we're getting close on time. And Joey raised his hand, but Mr. Chairman, we're getting close.
Go ahead, Joey.
Real quick, the only thing on the economic impact study is that if it's done, it wouldn't be done just for the Chapter 380, is my understanding. And so, a city of our size typically has one, and Declo, I think what we talked about in the subcommittee was that we don't, and could be used for things other than just the development of a 380 plan. Am I correct there, Declo, or am I?
Yes, you're correct, and it would probably take 9 months to a year to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
The question is, we want to move forward with a Chapter 380 agreement, but the question is. And I'm in agreement with Julian, is that we also maybe formulate a subcommittee on the cluster initiatives. We don't have to just, we want to finish the 380, but I think it's also important for us to look at these cluster initiatives. So any other comments from any of the other members?
I'd like to make a comment. Julian, isn't that why we did the comprehensive plan, the comp plan? That's where we're supposed to be doing it.
So it is, actually, I'm not going to misspeak. Declo, does the comp plan discuss cluster analysis at all?
Not that it talks about it, but it tells you what the industries, where we should look forward to, or what we're supposed to be doing in the future.
It doesn't give us a cluster analysis. It does. It just as much as I think we can all agree transportation is something we need to look into. That's essentially, and it dives a little deeper, but it doesn't give a breakdown of the industry. It just says it's
not inventing which do we go after. You know what I mean? What industry or what are we supposed to do the clusters on? It's already spoken in the comprehensive plan what we should focus on. What is the industries, the powerful ones, or the ones that we have here, and those are the ones that we should focus on and get cluster plans on, or analysis, or everything.
The comprehensive plan is, in terms of economic development, it doesn't provide too much in-depth focus. It does its job very well on how the city should develop in terms of development. Economic development, the consultant didn't spend much time on it. He does mention a few general topics like, hey, this is really important to the city and so forth. But one thing to keep in mind, Mr. Dominguez, is the city council has given me direction to look at a few things going forward in terms of industries. And one of them, the top one they wanted us to look at, was manufacturing. And the second one is an agreement with what Julian said, and that was the healthcare industry. So, I think that these ideas of doing the cluster analysis, I think manufacturing goes hand in hand with transportation anyway. So I think that can be, looked at even together possibly. But nevertheless, that was just something I wanted to add.
Well, if I can just say anything, I think Declo, that just makes transportation more important, because an analysis of transportation is going to tell us, okay, these are the subcategories that we can use to go to all these other manufacturers. You know, just like how we got that medical facility here. They did that because we have a transportation industry here. So being able to articulate that a lot better and understand what other industries we can go after because we have transportation, that essentially, to me, creates that goal. So if you don't mind, I would like to make a motion to create motion to create a subcommittee for a transportation and medical cluster initiative.
Can you do me one big favor, Julian, and kind of just save my skin a little bit? And okay. Can you in parentheses around transportation put manufacturing, so the city council doesn't say, hey, what the heck are you doing?
Okay, hold on. Let me, if you don't mind me.
And I don't know if the resolution should also include, like what Arturo said, something about that it be in line with what was discussed in the comprehensive plan, and of course in line with the chapter 380. Where
I have a motion regarding that, John, but it's.
I'm sorry,
Julian's. I have a motion regarding that.
I'm sorry, John. What were you saying? I didn't quite under.
No, I mean your motion, I guess, is for the is to form a subcommittee. I mean, I'm in agreement with that. I guess for the transportation, manufacturing, and medical. But I guess part of the cluster analysis is how we're going to incorporate it into the chapter 380, but also take into account, like Arturo said, our comprehensive plan, right?
Yes. So if I can respond to Teclo first, Teclo, if I don't want to add to say to also create a manufacturing cluster initiative, because we're going after that. We don't have it yet. But what I am willing to do is, if I can add to that statement something along the lines of saying, so once that sentence is over, cluster initiative period, so that we can focus on attracting other clusters like manufacturing. Yeah? Okay. Motion to create a subcommittee for transportation and medical cluster initiative so that we can attract other clusters like manufacturing.
Okay, there's
one real quick, just a word to use. If you want to use transportation, or do you want to use logistics?
I will let the profession. I only represent them. I am not one of them myself. So Arturo, Alma, what do you guys think?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
You can add both, Julian.
Is this a Jeopardy question? Or
I was looking at the cluster report. I realized I didn't paste it, and I wanted to go back and check something because I think I just have a different understanding. So can you just repeat the question, please?
Teclo?
So Julian's motion is to create a subcommittee to study or to look at clusters, developing clusters in transportation and healthcare, right? And so I asked him, do you want to use the word transportation, or do you want to use logistics? But
it should be logistics.
Logistics?
Yeah, it should probably be logistics.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to create a subcommittee for logistics and medical cluster initiative, so that we can incentivize new clusters. Oh, I'm doing this on the spot. New clusters, such as manufacturing.
Isn't clusters just gathering data and understanding where we're at right now, so we have an idea of where we want to go?
Yes, but
if you look at the McAllen one, so are we developing a plan to attract manufacturing, or are we just trying to understand where we're at, where our strengths are, and what clusters we have?
Are you asking about the subcommittee?
Yes.
The subcommittee is going to be in charge of basically bringing together, so So, for example, I wanted to recommend that Maida Arturo sit on this subcommittee. Maida, because of her connection to TAMU. Is Maida on this call? I haven't.
Yes.
Okay. Arturo, his connection to transportation, they would be in charge of basically putting together the real kind of group that would be start gathering the that cluster's information. So we don't have anyone on this group that's for medical, but we can always invite someone from the medical industry to sit on, or not sit on the subcommittee, but to attend the subcommittee meeting.
Well, first is, I guess we would entertain the motion, and then I think we could get into volunteers. So I guess repeat the motion again, because I know it's pretty long-winded.
I feel like I only have the first part written. So Arnold or Tekla, have you written down what I've said thus far?
Yeah, Arnold's taking minutes, but take your time, Julian. Just go ahead and slow. We'll write it down.
While Julian's developing his motion, can I create a motion?
I'm sorry?
While Julian's developing his motion, can I create a motion?
Well, we would need him to finish his motion, and then you could have another motion. But that's up to the chairman to decide.
Okay. Okay. Motion to create a subcommittee for a logistics and medical cluster initiative so that we can incentivize other, I guess at this point we'll just say incentivize other industries such as manufacturing.
Okay, so there's a motion. Discussion?
Second by Arturo.
So, okay, there's a motion. Second by Arturo. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up the point I just brought up on, is the cluster to analyze data and to see where we're at. And when you say you're trying to incentivize another sector like manufacturing, is that, and then what you're doing is you're creating an incentive package plan. I'm thinking of them as two different things.
I asked him to put that language in there because the city council has directed me to go after manufacturing. So he didn't put that in there. I asked him to do that. And that was so if the city council sees this suggestion or action that y'all are doing, that it is somewhat in sync to what they're asking for. That's all.
And right now the motion is just to create a subcommittee.
Yeah, this subcommittee is not in charge of being the people that collect the data. They're in charge of actually, so for example, Alma, I'm sure knows someone that's, Alma, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Alma, someone from TAMU, I think, was part of a small cluster initiative a couple months ago. So for example, I think if you can bring him back into the picture, essentially bringing those individuals together so the initiative can get started. It's not the sole job of the subcommittee to be essentially, to title of something like the consultants that know how to put this together.
So right now the motion is to create a subcommittee. I know
do we have to, in the motion, put the names of the subcommittee, or can we define that afterwards?
We can, in my opinion, I think we should do that afterwards.
Okay, well, that's my motion.
Subcommittee?
I'm sorry?
How many members to a subcommittee?
Four. We don't want to get a quorum. So there's a motion, there's a second by Arturo Dominguez. All those in favor by saying aye or raising your hand?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay, motion carries. Very good. Now, formulating the members of the subcommittee. Who wants to be in the subcommittee?
If I can just recommend, I would love it if Arturo, Alma, and Maida were a part of it.
Would y'all like to be part? Anybody?
What
Arturo, Mayra, and Alma, would
timeline?
y'all be part of that subcommittee?
What kind of timeline are we talking about here?
Yes.
I guess we need to get into it, and then we can get into a timeline. I mean, it could be 2-3 months.
Yeah, I'll be on it.
Okay. Anybody else wants to be on it?
Be on it. This is Myra.
Mayra?
Arturo.
Arturo, you want to be on it? That's 3.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I'm assuming Julian was going to be on it.
I'd like to focus on the chapter 380, and I think Joey, you and I should just stay on that. If anything, since John's the chair, John, do you want to be on that one also?
Okay, I'll be on it. Now on the chapter 380, we have how many members? 3 of us right now. We could use another member for the chapter 380 if anybody wants to volunteer.
I'd say y'all keep it small. The smaller, the more efficient, in my humble opinion.
Okay.
Hey everyone, can I, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're 20 minutes over
Okay.
what our posted meeting time
So
was.
the motion passes. We already got the subcommittee. Any other discussion on this item? If not, we'll go to the last item, which is
I would recommend we table the item, Mr. Chairman, only because we're 20 minutes over, and I don't want anyone to say that we are taking up items past our deadline.
I agree. Does anybody want to take that item, or we'll just table it? Do I hear a motion to table the item, the 4th item?
Motion to table.
Motion to table by Arturo, second.
Dickey, second.
All those in favor? Raising your hand, saying aye. Very good. Motion passes. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Any other comments?
Yeah, just a little comment on the cargo. We're 10% difference pre-COVID on cargo. What has been incrementing is the weekends. We used to have Saturdays between 1,800 and 2,000 trailers. We're getting 3,000 on a Saturday, and on Sundays, which is only 4 hours, we're going all the way to 1,500 trailers on a Sunday.
Wow.
What do you think is causing the spike?
We have no idea. But it's very unusual to have that type of cargo.
Food products, I guess that's
It's
everyone on Freight Waves, which is the source for freight, journalism and trucking across the country. Great website, reputable journalism they have on there. They said that Laredo is the 3rd tightest freight market in terms of available space and trucks available to carry freight. They mentioned there was a lot of COVID related materials such as paper and other products that consumers are now taking in. But anyway, that's just that. But thank you everyone for your effort. Really appreciate it.
thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Hey, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Julian, second by Fred.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion passes. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.